What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel. In today's video, we're going to be discussing age and XP bars within Madden franchise mode. This is a topic that I wanted to address because I continue to get many questions, even from the people that I have played franchise mode with for years, regarding how I build teams up to be very high overall so easily, and how I progress my players so quickly. As you can see here, this is a comparison between two users in week 1. My team now, multiple years in, is a 95 offense, 91 defense, 93 overall. And this team is an 87, 87, 87. Part of this is, of course, due to off-season strategy. Part of it is, of course, due to draft strategy. Part of it is, of course, due to how I re-sign my players versus trading those players and whatnot. But the main factor that I think is lost on a lot of people whenever they play franchise mode is how age and XP bars are interlaced or interlocked within Madden franchise mode, and how they affect your player's development, how quickly you can earn upgrade points, and how high overall a player can actually get. So I want to give you guys some examples, one of which is Emory Jones, who is a player that I drafted as a rookie in the middle rounds and is now up to a 99 overall at 23 years old. The most important thing in his development was winning MVP. Whenever he won MVP as a high 70s, low 80s overall player, he got 12 upgrade points off of winning MVP. Now, I'm not saying that every player that wins MVP is going to get that, because that is going to depend on the player's XP bar. So let's kind of talk about why that is. Well, what happens is when you win an award like that, and when you do anything in Madden, you get a set amount of XP for it. Winning an award, I don't know exactly what the MVP total is, but let's call it 50,000 XP. Well, if you have an XP bar, as Emory Jones does right now, that is around 10,000, I'm only going to get 5 upgrades off of that. Let's say 50,000 XP, my XP bar is around 10,000. You divide that out and you're going to get 5 upgrade points. It's going to fill your bar with 50,000 points worth of experience. Now, as your overall goes up, that XP bar is going to get bigger. So at an 80 overall, my XP bar might be something, and then at an 81, my XP bar is going to be greater. So let me show you a good example of that. I have a case study for us today that I want you guys to pay close attention to. We're going to look at tight end Colston Loveland right now. Right now, he's 21 years old, a 76 overall, and has star dev. His XP bar, as it stands, is 6,342. which is a fairly reasonable XP bar. Let's take a look at what happens if I were to make him a 75 overall player. I'm going to do that by just taking his awareness down from 60 to 55. His overall now in vertical threat will be a 75 overall, but that's going to change his XP bar, how much is required for him to get an upgrade. So you can now see that his XP bar is only 6,073. So the point there to start off with is that the lower overall a player is, the smaller their XP bar is. It takes a 99 overall player a lot more XP to upgrade than a 75 overall player. If we take a look at Trey Knox, who's a superstar tight end, he takes 8,096 XP to upgrade. That is due to different factors, but one of those factors, as I mentioned, is going to be the player's overall. The other factor here is going to be the player's development and the player's age. So let's go ahead and increase his awareness back up to 60. He's a 76 overall, so his XP bar should be that 6,342. But let's go ahead and give him normal development, because this is most of the players coming out of the draft, what they're going to look like. They're going to look like a young, normal development player. Well, we can then see that Colston Loveland's XP bar now goes up to 7,928. That's an increase of around 1,500 extra XP just for one upgrade on that player. That in and of itself shows you the importance of simply having star development trait, let alone getting superstar or X factor on a player. So part of the reason that I am very successful in building teams and growing their overalls as quickly as I am is because I focus on young players. But not only do I focus on young players, I focus on getting those young players higher devs. The best way that you can grow your team is to force feed those younger players or force play those younger players so that they have chances at dev upgrades, so that they have chances at awards, so that they have chances at the end of the year to finish high in the stat categories and get a dev up off of that, off of Madden's base system. That is going to improve a player's capability in order to upgrade. So another example to take a look at here is going to be my offensive lineman, my right tackle, Zach Rice. I picked this guy up out of free agency this year. I have no idea why a team let him go to free agency, but he's a 22-year-old, 75 or 76 overall. A lot of people would get this player and think that they're going to develop into some type of an amazing star for their team. The problem is, especially at a position like offensive line, there are no dev upgrade challenges. There's not really a way to earn a dev. And so this guy coming in with normal development is not going to become much better of a player than he already is. He'll probably hit high 70s. In a few years, he might hit the 80s, but that's all he's ever going to amount to for your team, and it's going to be much slower of a process than people think because of that normal dev. So the mistake that a lot of people often find themselves in is drafting a player like Zach Rice at a position that can't really earn a dev upgrade point and over committing to that player. Oh yeah, I got a 75 overall 22-year-old rookie or 22-year-old second-year player. Of course he's going to dev up because he's young. He's a high overall for that age. Of course he's going to develop into a great player for my team. That is not necessarily the case. You have to get players that have developments on them or can earn developments while they are young and a reasonably low overall, because that is the prime combination for leveling those players up. The prime ability to develop those players into high overalls is to be a low overall to begin with, to be 21 or 22 years old, and to have a dev already or be able to obtain a dev. The other factor there is going to be age. So let's go ahead back to our tight end, Colston Loveland, and give you guys an example of how age impacts this. One of the biggest things that I think is, again, lost on people is the way that age actually impacts these players, because they drop off in XP potential very early on. Your prime XP earning years are 21, 22, and 23. If a player is beyond those years and they are not close to what you expect them or want them to be, you are going to probably want to give up on that player and transition to a different plan. Try to go acquire somebody that does have the potential to have a dev or already has a dev. That happens a lot in franchise mode. You'll get to a player that's 24 years old, 25 years old, and you'll realize that they're not actually developing the way that you thought that they might. So again, Colston Loveland at star dev, 76 overall, 6,342 on his XP bar. All we have to do is simply change his age in order to make a massive difference. So we'll go up to 22 and see what that looks like. At 22 years old, that's going to give him 6,716, so not that much of a difference. But let's go ahead and take him up to 24 years old and see what that difference looks like for a player like this. That's going to give him somewhere in the ballpark of 7,000 plus, 7,462. So just the difference of those 3 years is going to get 1,000 extra XP. So you have to think about that in terms of your weekly training. If this player is not catching the ball, is not earning awards, is not earning weekly awards, is not really doing anything, just progressing on their own as the system would have them progress. In weekly training, this guy's going to earn 100, 150 XP, maybe more if he's a scheme fit and those types of things. So at 1,000 extra XP, that alone is going to take 10 weeks of the season in order to just get one more upgrade on that player. That's a big difference. And I know that those are kind of generic numbers, but it's worth considering. So let's go ahead now and make him 24 years old. Let's maybe say 25 years old. And let's make him normal development and see how bad of a difference that looks like. Now, Colston Loveland, all things held the same, has to earn 10,820 XP just to get one upgrade. At this point, this player has maxed out as far as what they are going to be for your team. That is what I would recommend you consider. Now, that's not to say that he's not going to earn 5,000 more XP and become a usable player for my team. I know that pretty much no matter what, the upgrades are not going to come fast enough and close enough together that they are going to make a difference in this player's career. I'm going to get one upgrade at week 8, and he's going to be a 77. And then I'm going to get one upgrade at the end of the season, and he's going to be a 78. And then next year, he's still going to be a 78. And then by mid-season, he's going to be a 79. And at that point, he's 26 years old. All right, so then he reaches an 80 overall by the time that he's 27, 28 years old. Well, at that point, he's on his downward decline, or he's completely stagnant. He's not lived up to what you expected him to be. So that's why I recommend that you guys do not get too invested in young players that are either a little bit too old or are not capable of getting a dev and those types of things. So I personally really like to influence people to go after players that can get a dev. Devs, development traits, are literally everything within Madden 24. And in every Madden that I can remember, your development capability is literally everything to that player's capability for you long term in a franchise mode, and I feel like that is often lost on players. You should always focus on young players, but focus on players that, like I said, can get a dev. And I think one of the places that people run into the issues the most with this is going to be somewhere like the offensive line, or potentially in certain defensive positions like defensive line, linebacker, corner, depending on where you struggle to get dev upgrades. I oftentimes struggle to get dev upgrades like on the D-line and in the secondary. I do often see dev upgrade challenges for linebackers, so that's not something I've had an issue with, but I very often see people getting a draft pick for a big-time player, as an example, like a Zach Rice here, and thinking that, yeah, my issues are solved on the offensive line, thinking that this guy's going to turn into like an 85-plus overall lineman that has solved all of my issues, pass blocking woes and whatnot. And that's just simply not the case. This guy, you have to understand what he's capable of. He is far less valuable than Colston Loveland is at tight end, because at that tight end position, I can force him the ball. I can get him into the top of the stat categories. I can make sure that he gets a dev upgrade just based off of the system alone. Meanwhile, I can't do jack about Zach Rice, and he is what he is. And maybe I'm happy with a high 70s, maybe an 80 overall lineman in the long term for my offense, but generally that's not how I run my business here with my franchises in Madden 24 or any Madden. And that's why my team gets up to such a high overall, because I'm going to focus on the guys that can have a dev. Like I said, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on these linemen. Those are linemen that are long term going to be backups for me. I'm going to go out, if I draft a guy like Zach Rice with my first overall pick or my first round pick, and I realize, dang, he doesn't have hidden dev, I'm coming up with a plan pretty much right away to go out and get a guy like Ikem Ekwonu, who has star dev and is 25 years old. Because even at star dev, I know that this guy is going to have a little bit more upside potential than somebody else. Or I'm just flat out going out to get somebody that's a higher overall like this guy, because I know that Zach Rice is not going to upgrade quickly enough to make it matter in the long term for my franchise, or even make it matter in the short term. So one of the best examples I can give to just kind of wrap up this video is Izzy Abanikanda. This is all 100% natural progression. And at one point, Abanikanda did have superstar based on his development. He was injured a little bit last year, so this is even development that has been hamstrung a bit by injury and by losing a dev, because I had another running back that broke out with a bunch of natural progression as well. Izzy Abanikanda comes in at 20 years old in franchise. He has the most potential to obtain XP out of like any running back in the game, any young or low overall running back in the game. And he is now an 86 overall star at 23 years old. Should be superstar if I didn't have another running back take over and supplant him and basically own his position. In 3 seasons, that's from a 65 overall to an 86 overall. That's 21 upgrade points, simply because he was young, he was low overall, and I was able to get a dev onto him quickly in our franchise. And now he's at the point where it really doesn't matter too much what else I do with him. I could start him again. I could probably get him superstar again. I could focus train him, whatever. But he's still a top back as far as overall within the league. And then I had a guy like Daquan Freightline come in, who is now up to a 92 overall and is absolutely a monster at a running back. This guy came in the mid 70s. And it's because he was able to get a dev quickly. He came in with star dev. He was able to get up to superstar, and he's 22 years old. And he's now taking such minimal XP to upgrade that he's going to be a 99 in no time at all. But you compare those XP bars for a guy like Abanikanda and a guy like Freightline, we're talking about 9,000 XP for a guy that's a 92 overall, which is where it is most difficult to earn XP when you're a higher overall. You know, we take a look at, a higher overall, somewhat older player like Puka Nacua. He takes 14,000 XP to upgrade. So the older you are, the harder it is. But then we compare that against, again, a guy like Zach Rice, who's 22 years old, and he's taking 8,000. So Freightline, who's a 92 overall, because of his age, because of his dev, is taking 10,000. But then Zach Rice, who is 22 years old and a 75, who should be a potential really good player in the long run, taking 8,000 XP. Do not make the mistake of investing too heavily in a player like this. A player that is a little bit young, that has a decent overall, that has normal dev, that can't earn a better dev. That is one thing that will save you in franchise mode, that will allow you to build better teams, and something that a lot of people that I associate with in franchise still don't quite understand, because they always ask me, well, like, how do you get your team to such a high overall? And I say, well, I draft young players. Well, I draft devs. I draft certain positions certain ways, this, that, and the other thing. But then they don't understand the nuance of like, okay, well, like, you've drafted those young players, but are you overcommitting to them? A lot of people would overcommit to a guy like this. So hopefully that helps somebody out there to kind of see the nuance to how XP bars work, how age works, how overall works, how dev works to impact how quickly players can develop, and how you can potentially leverage that system by combining those factors in order to get a team like this that's a 93 overall or better. Anyway, I hope that that was useful to you guys in some way. I find it to be the most valuable information in franchise mode because it is directly correlated to having a good roster. And if this did help you out in some way, leave a like down below, please. I would like to hear your comments on this. How much do you factor in a player's potential XP gain to whether you commit to them and how you build your team? Because I'm very curious about that, because I don't think I see enough players out there actually factoring that into the long term. If you're going to be in a franchise that lasts multiple years, you really should consider it, and you really should prioritize XP gain and how quickly they can gain XP and how quickly they can get an upgrade based on their max XP bar. So leave a like down below, leave that comment, let me know your thoughts. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope you have a good one.